Nancy Pelosi also striking back today. Casey, you've been certainly hearing from a lot of Democrats today in their reaction to the president.
We have, Andrea, and what you're finally seeing after something of a delay related to that longest in history government shutdown is this Democratic House really getting into gear and starting what is going to be a very methodical, strategic, despite the way the president wants to frame this, way of digging in to the president's finances, his potential ties to Russia in the case of the Intelligence Committee and other matters. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was asked about this at a press conference just an hour or so ago. Take a look at how she answered questions about investigations into the president's tax returns.
I always think that whatever the president says about us, he's projecting his own unruliness. He's a projector, and that's what it's about. We will not surrender our constitutional responsibility for oversight.
Those comments, of course, also coming in response to the president's claims that he's being harassed by the Democratic House. And you, of course, Andrea, will remember well that when Republicans held control of the House and Democratic President Barack Obama was in the White House, there were plenty of investigations into an administration that, of course, has had nowhere near, if any, legal entanglements, indictments of former officials, et cetera, that this administration is dealing with.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.